Okay. So thank you so much for everybody for again donating some of your time tonight to enjoy this presentation and learn a little bit more about the project that the city of Hamilton is undertaking. So I'll introduce myself first. My name is Joe Nethery. I am one of the consulting planners who is working on this project. The city of Hamilton has retained the planning partnership to complete this work. I am joined by my colleague Marcus Ruggiero, who is going to be supporting me, taking notes and keeping an eye on the question and answer period as well. I would like to share my microphone here for a second with Neil Stoop, a senior planner within the community planning division at the city, to say hello and introduce anybody he'd like to introduce as well.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's attending here and watching tonight. My name is Neil Stoop, and as Joe mentioned, I'm a senior planner in the community planning team with the City of Hamilton. Rather than pass the microphone sort of all the way across the front, I'll sort of very quickly kind of run through as they are on my screen, just to give everyone an idea of who's on the call with me or with us. So first on my screen is Dave Hayworth. He is the manager of sustainable communities, which he's my manager. Melissa Kitty is also here with us. She's a natural heritage planner with the city. Melanie Pham is the team lead for community planning. Patrick Yip is joining us from transportation planning. And that's everyone. Thanks, Joe. I'll pass it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neil. So I will go back here. I'm going to share my screen, which of course will be the slide that everybody just saw. And I will make a couple of quick points here for a light tutorial for anybody who might be new to a Zoom webinar. First things first, down at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little button that says Q&A. So the question and answer portal is our method for being able to communicate using this platform tonight. As a question gets sent in, we're able to see it here on our side, on the moderation side, and we will advance those into the public forum as we answer them. Please understand we will do our best to answer every question that comes through. If we are getting lots of them and we see some similarities between a number of them, we may have to consolidate a couple of those questions into one response. I think that about does it for my little briefing and tutorial here. I also think we have our technical issue resolved, as I find an additional person from city staff that might be coming in. So with that, we may as well get our show on the road here. So thank you. We're here tonight talking about the Airport Employment Growth District Secondary Plan Update. And as a part of making this a successful night, I do wish to start with a respectful land acknowledgement, courtesy of the city of Hamilton, and that the city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas nations. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase of 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. That today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island and North America, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. The agenda for tonight's session, and for anybody who was here last night, you're going to see an awful lot of similarity, mostly because this is the same presentation and the same panels that were there that you would have seen last night at the Mount Hope Community Center. We've completed our welcome and our introductions. I'm going to continue forward here with our presentation. I've also been asked to share and do an overview of the panels that were on display yesterday at the community center. I'll very quickly describe what is on each map, and that information will be posted online, hopefully very shortly, over the next couple of days and before the weekend for you to enjoy it at home at your pace. You are able to punch in your questions at any time as information comes fresh and up in your mind, but I'm going to reserve our time at the end to provide those answers. There is no formal conclusion to this event or this presentation. Once you've shared what you needed to share, you've heard what you needed to hear, you're more than welcome to go. Understanding at some point I will eventually click the end button and head upstairs for a snack myself. And for those who are interested, there are 24 of you watching publicly on this Zoom link, so thank you again for your time tonight. With that, let's discuss this presentation. I will be discussing the purpose of this work and this project, where we are in our current state of the project, which is the beginning of our public engagement work. I'm going to summarize our findings on the research that's been undertaken to date, and introduce briefly the draft official plan amendment that the project team will be working on over the course of the summer. I'll conclude with our next steps and any questions or answers, that come in through the chat. So the main purpose of this project, we have two overarching purposes. The first is to ensure that any land use decisions that are being made in the secondary plan area are consistent with the approved 2023 Transportation Master Plan update. This is likely a project that many of you were involved in. We are now taking over from that work in order to implement some of its high-level findings into the official plan and the secondary plan itself. As a component of this work, we've also been asked to ensure that natural heritage system mapping, identified features and their locations, reflect those found in other approved studies, and updated review work that has been undertaken through the development of review process. Our third main intent is the cumulative summary of this work. We're preparing a draft official plan amendment that will implement those proposed changes for council approval. And there will be further consultation and statutory public meetings held under the Planning Act for those purposes. So there are three overarching documents that touch this work and what we are doing. Primarily, it is the secondary plan process, the secondary plan itself for the Airport Employment Growth District. The secondary plan was initially adopted by Hamilton City Council in 2010. It went into effect after a few years in 2015. This update that we're doing in 2024 continues the development of that work and its overall implementation. The secondary plan is itself underpinned by a transportation master plan. It was initially approved in 2011. It went through an update in 2016 and an update again from 2021 through to 2023. There are a few very key and critical changes that have occurred through that 2023 update, and I'll go into greater detail on those in the next couple of slides. Thirdly, there is also a sub-watershed and stormwater master plan document that helps to underpin the environmental framework in the secondary plan area. It was initially approved in 2011 with a comprehensive update completed in 2017. City staff have asked us to take a close look at that document as a part of the natural heritage system work that will be underway as a part of this project. It's a 4-phase project. We began this work, I'll say mid-spring, by undertaking that background work and review of the existing documentation and its current states. We've done that review, assessed that against some of the we've assessed that work against those existing documents to have some recommendations that we want to share with you tonight. We are now undertaking public engagement. This includes the public session that was held in person last night, our consultation, and we've also done one conversation so far with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation earlier this week. Staff are available throughout this project to answer your questions and facilitate future dialogue, and we'll have contact information to share at the end of this presentation. We will be shifting into preparing the draft official plan amendment and associated project reporting over the course of this summer to then be back out for our final phase of work, committee and council adoption in the fall of this year. So the first purpose, as I had mentioned earlier, is updating the secondary plan to implement that approved 2023 master plan update. That update has changed the alignment of some of the future roads from what a map that you would have seen before. Some are new, some have been deleted, some have been adjusted. Within those, there are some adjustments also to the planned widths of each corridor and the infrastructure that would be contained within those. I'll talk a little bit about more of those details in some of the coming slides. At the same time, an update to the natural heritage system mapping and policies will also be occurring as well. These refinements, minor additions, and removals are being undertaken to ensure that the natural heritage system is complete and has been consistently identified across the Urban Hamilton official plan and its parent policies, the secondary plan mapping and policies themselves, and those approved studies, the subwatershed work, and the development work that's been undertaken through development approvals since that time. Part of ensuring that these boundaries are appropriate in there is a reflection on the generally changing state of nature. Those shifts while these maps are static, those changes do occur in the environment as well. We are doing our best to ensure that the mapping is appropriate and that the text underpinning these maps backs that work up as well too. In terms of our findings through that background work so far, I highlighted the first major change is that the new mapping needs to recognize those adjusted roads and delete the ones that are no longer required, as has been identified in the 2023 master plan update. There are some corresponding policy revisions in text that we're going to be recommending that reflect those functional classifications, the plan capacities within those corridors, the infrastructure to be contained with them, and how they should be designed in order to deliver that multimodal transportation network that has been reviewed and envisioned and approved by council. That high-level work also supports transit network and active transportation mapping that would come alongside this policy work to reflect the findings and the recommendations in that master plan update itself. Note, of course, that this work doesn't necessarily stop at this project as well. There will continue to be environmental assessments and detailed design work done for those future corridors, which will all require public notice and public processes as well. There is protection that we are looking to make in the text to ensure priority transit use is protected for and equipped within those corridors. Priority transit, higher order transit are important components of the overall multimodal network within this area. We are looking to strengthen some of those policies that around design at the development stage to support those transit functions and the multimodal network as well. Examples including carpool parking locations and the avoidance of excess parking supply in development proposals. Last, and not wanting to dwarf it out by 5 individual transit points, but a fairly important part of this project is providing those mapping updates to ensure that the natural heritage system remains current, and that the mapping comprehensively identifies all of those features, and we have the policy underpinnings behind that to protect for, mitigate against impacts, eliminate impacts upon the features that support that. The draft official plan amendment itself will accomplish a number of goals, including that alignment of the secondary plan text with the approved master plan update itself, replacing the current multimodal transportation network mapping to reflect the updated and far more in-depth planning that the city is undertaking in order to deliver on that network, designating and protecting within the policy the specific rights of way for priority transit use, updating the design policies behind the master plan and the mapping itself to ensure that the secondary plan is appropriately reflecting that vision as well. The natural heritage maps and policy updates will be undertaken are here to ensure that the protection and enhancement of those natural features within the secondary plan continues forward, is provided for to the maximum extent possible, and that the accuracy of those defined features through the 2017 work and the development applications themselves are appropriately reflected throughout the city's policy planning framework. What you should expect to see in the draft official plan amendment that comes out this summer would be primarily a series of mapping amendments on the main B, and I'm going to use very technical jargon on the labeling of those maps if you are following along closely at home. B.8-1, the main land use plan with behind the secondary plan, will have some minor amendments that reflect the environmental feature locations. Maps B.82 and 3, the natural heritage system and the road classification maps, will be deleted and replaced with new mapping. There will also be a pair of appendix maps that will follow along as well. The difference being that there's a little bit more flexibility in the appendix policies to reflect and provide for that flexibility that needs to come in identifying some of those features. There will be some amendments to the parent official plan itself, primarily to synchronize with the secondary plan policies and mapping itself. This will include amendments to Schedule B, the Urban Hamilton Official Plan's Natural Heritage System maps, as well as a number of its subset maps where detailed feature identification happens. Amendments to Schedule C and the functional road classifications within the parent official plan, as well as numerical edits to Schedule C2, where there are technical figures provided that identify the widths of planned future roads. So our overall next steps themselves, I mentioned our consultation with Indigenous nations. We've had one conversation today. We may be continuing those over the course of the summer. We will be undertaking the preparation of the draft official plan amendment and the background reports to support that work over the course of the summer. In case you're wondering what I'm getting up to for my holiday plans. In the fall of this year, we will be planning for our statutory public meeting at Planning Committee and the final recommendations behind that as well. In concluding that presentation, this would be a time where if any questions have come up, to begin populating those into the chat. I will make a point of making this slide available at the end of our presentation to make sure folks have access to the QR code, which you can use to access the project's engagement website using your mobile phone tonight. And noting down that Neil's email is also there as well. If you want to fire him off any questions, you can do that. You can do that as well. Excellent, and I recognize the asker of the first question. But before I get to that question, I will now switch up the information that I was sharing on screen. And it just takes me a second to set up appropriately to run through the slides that were on last night. Or I'm sorry, not the slides, the paper mapping that was online last night. The purpose of this work panel is same as the one that you just saw on screen as well. Our overall work plan, also another panel that was online last night. You have seen that version on screen. And one of the items that we were doing and that staff were available and standing next to the panels as well to answer were comparison figures. So the map that you see on top is the road network that's in the current secondary plan itself. Below that is the mapping that's contained in the updated transportation master plan itself. Very quickly, I won't pretend to highlight every change that you can see on screen. In the eastern areas of the secondary plan, or I'll say the northeastern area of the secondary plans itself, some arterial and collector roads were removed for a simpler alignment that's better reflective of the natural heritage system in the area. The second circle, including the one that I just did down at the left, I had a detailed conversation with a resident about Southcote Road, which in the previous secondary plan was shown as a 90-degree turn. A more gentle bend has been introduced in that proposal as well. The notation has also changed in that area and on other areas within the secondary plan to show these locations as potential alignments. These are being areas where additional study and research was going to be required and suggested before even a conceptual road location could be determined. It appears as though I have opened the actual panel version itself and not the adjusted version that I had made. So if the group will humor me for about 20 seconds. We'll very quickly switch that up. There we go. So this would be a new map that would be included within the overall policy framework as one of the appendices. The Transportation Master Plan update introduced phasing priorities for building the future road network itself. Similar mapping already exists for the overall development of land and those phasing priorities as well too. So the roads here are proposed as a higher priority, medium priority, and lower priority project. Those sorts of additions would be factored into the overall capital planning that gets undertaken by the City of Hamilton on a routine basis for long-term forecasting, and would be considered as a part of any development applications that may come forward in these locations as well. The current secondary plan also contains potential transit routes as an appendix, so subject to some flexibility. That mapping is also proposed to be updated with a far richer amount of transit and additional routes. These notations follow revised roading alignments in locations. They go a little bit further to even introduce where those potential routings might go, on the understanding for everybody's benefit that these remain highly conceptual and subject to additional further approvals and research. In terms of the natural heritage system itself, we have this map, which reflects the features that are contained in the secondary plan today in the mapping that came in 2016. Its companion mapping next to it online shows a pair of maps, a feature mapping with additional features that were identified in that 2017 Subwatershed and Stormwater Master Plan document. And as a result, the mapping below it, we are identifying a few areas where some additional feature identification would be proposed. Next to those maps were additional mapping that included the identification of stream corridors and hedgerows within that feature as well. And below that, a very color-rich, detailed map identifying the intended end state of the natural heritage system mapping once this project is complete, along with a series of color codes identifying where that feature has been identified within the existing data in the city's ownership, in order to try and show for viewers the linkage that has been made. Understanding this is a bit of a difficult map to read on screen, we are promising to post that online with haste. I had talked about additional depth to active transportation in the multimodal network within the secondary plan area itself. The screen that was on top was showing the location of multi-use trail facilities. At present, that mapping is consolidated with transit mapping. We will be proposing to break that out into its own separate appendix for everybody to see a little bit more closely. The trails feature within the 2023 Transportation Master Plan update is far richer, far additional, with further additions and corridors identified within that framework. We also had the same conclusion slide, which conveniently, if you were still looking to get that QR code or Neil's email address, you can also get from this slide from this panel as well. That being the last panel that was there, I've concluded the presentation and the walkthrough of the panels itself. So I'm going to pivot at this time to answering questions, of which there are currently two. I'm excited to see what others are going to come in as we continue to talk here. If anything on there is of interest or something I've said has piqued something, please continue to submit those questions using the Q&A feature down below. if that is not necessarily working or you're looking to discuss in an alternate format, I would invite you to email Neil as well. So the first question, Neil, would you like to say something before I continue on here?
Yeah, I just want to chime in for those watching that we recognize this isn't necessarily the easiest way to see some of those panels. So as Joe's mentioned a few times, those are going to be available online, likely in the early part of next week. If you don't have your questions ready today, you want to see some of those panels, feel free to reach out to me directly via email. There's also an opportunity on the Engage page, which is linked there at the bottom through that QR code, to post questions there as well. So just because tonight is the night of the meeting, there's no expectation this is the end of all your questions or inquiries. So as you feel comfortable, use whichever one of those methods works best for you. And if there's a piece of information we've referenced and you're not seeing on the Engage page next week, or you're having trouble finding it, feel free to reach out to me directly, and we can certainly get that information in your hands so you're able to ask all your questions. So I just wanted to kind of put that disclaimer out there before we jumped right into the questions. Thanks, Joe.